So why is Darth Maul a fan favorite for The Phantom Menace? Everyone loved Darth Maul coming out of The Phantom Menace and going into it. There's a few things that he did that really kind of sealed the deal for a lot of people. And one thing I think people are really not understanding on why they like him so much, and it's something kind of simple. But Phantom Menace was received critically bad, and it did well financially, of course. It was very anticipated, but it was a letdown for a lot of fans at the time, and it's grown more appreciation as time goes on. I really don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I actually don't mind it. But I love Darth Maul. At first, it was originally going to go to Benicio del Toro, and he turned it down because he realized a lot of lines were getting cut, and he saw the way Darth Maul was going to die, and he didn't like that. But however, that's one of the reasons that Darth Maul's, well known and well loved, is because if you look at the movie itself, you look at Darth Maul, it's played by Ray Park, and if you don't know who Ray Park is, he's a great guy. Met him once or twice. He's on Instagram, follow him, and he replies to everybody. He's extremely nice and an amazing dude, an amazing martial artist. And I think he has like 2 or 3 black belts. I only have one, and mine's like nowhere near as like all the flashy and fancy stuff he can do. But still, it's kind of nice, seeing people like that in the real world and doing all the stuff that you would want to do. So Darth Maul was played by Ray Park, a really cool guy. It was voiced over by another guy. I can't remember his name to save my life. I'm sorry. But Darth Maul didn't get a lot of lines in The Phantom Menace, and I think that's one of the reasons we like him so much. No matter what you say, George Lucas is not the greatest writer. He's got good ideas, I will always give you that, but the dialogue isn't that great. You can even look at some of the interviews that Carrie Fisher did, and she even says herself, the dialogue really was not that good. And you give a character like Darth Maul in a movie with a lot of bad dialogue, and where the acting isn't bad, but there's not much for the actors to go off of. You get a character that walks in, looks like a badass, and doesn't say anything. It's kind of drawing. It's something that, if he would have had more dialogue, with the few lines he did, if he would have had more dialogue, it would have been like, wow, this might not be that good of a character, or something like that. But since he didn't have a lot of dialogue, he gave that kind of, not Darth Vader impression, but that kind of cool aura around him, where he just walks in the room and it's like, wow, that's kind of the badass of the room. He's a cool guy. He's a Sith Lord and whatnot. And he's really gonna mess things up. And when he started fighting, it was amazing. He is in arguably one of the best lightsaber duels in the franchise, and I say arguably for a reason, and I'll touch on that in a later video. But still, he's in one of the better lightsaber battles. The choreography on it is absolutely amazing. He looks great. The way it flows and everything, it's absolutely just downright awesome. And it's one of those things where the not the costume, but the makeup they did, the character itself, the way he looks so cool, and it's lovable. It's hard not to say he doesn't look cool and menacing. And then you get him, doing all these flips and tricks by Ray Park, and he's doing this epic battle against Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan, or Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson, and it just looks downright amazing. And he doesn't talk much, so there's not much to kill the character. I've always said imagination is the greatest thing ever, and you imagine how cool of a character and how cool of a backstory he has at the time. So when you're watching him fight, and you're watching him just kind of do, not nothing, but just kind of do him, where he doesn't talk much, he doesn't have any corny dialogue to kill the character, you're like, wow, this guy's a badass, I wonder what he's like. The same thing happened with Boba Fett. He didn't talk much in The Empire Strikes Back, and everybody's like, wow, this guy's awesome, this guy's pretty cool. And then you get to episode 6, and he's still alright, he was still a fan favorite. Then he goes down like a punk in the Sarlacc pit, and you're like, oh, that was kind of, alright, well, whatever. People still loved him, though, because he didn't have a lot of lines. Because, no offense to Lucas, he's not the greatest at writing dialogue. And he's said it himself in countless interviews about making movies. He's like, I have this great idea. He's like, and the worst part about it is when no one else can do it, and then eventually I have to make it. And it was in his interview with Seth MacFarlane, if you want to look it up. So, I personally think the reason we love him so much is because he didn't have a lot of dialogue. He was a really cool character in the Clone Wars. I think Rebels didn't do him too much justice. If anything, it kind of brought down the character, especially in the way he died, not against Kenobi, but the way he was like acting, and he's all yelling, Kenobi, and it was really kind of cringe, to be honest. But overall, Darth Maul's a great character, played by a great actor of Ray Park, and I would have loved to seen him come back on the big screen to play like a finishing role in the movie Kenobi. If, Obi-Wan Kenobi got his own spinoff, I would have thought that would have been a better way to send off Maul, but, it happens. He was great in Clone Wars. You got a lot more character development, and it grew the fan base even more for him. So I really do think it was a lack of dialogue in a movie with bad dialogue in The Phantom Menace that made him so loved. and the way he looked and the way he fought. So that's just my thought. Why do you think everyone loved Darth Maul? Comment your thoughts below. I'm Star Wars Only. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. May the Force be with you always.